In this video, we're going to show you how pads can transform the sound of your worship band. In this video, we're going to show you how pads can transform the sound of your worship band. You see? My name is Jake Goslin with Churchfront.com, an online resource for worship leaders and creatives. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you can receive all of our latest content to help you grow yourself and grow your church. So you may have noticed things sound a little more profound right now. There's a different feeling in the atmosphere. It's because of pads. And today I have my friend. Okay, you can stop playing pads now. It's really weird doing a YouTube video with pads. Anyways, I'm excited to have with me today Boomer Bate. Boomer is a music producer, a worship leader. He's a filmmaker and YouTuber. If you don't take anything else away from this video today, at least check out Boomer's work on his YouTube channel or his Instagram account, both of which are linked in the description of this video. I asked Boomer to come on the Churchfront channel to tell us all about using pads in worship to really enhance the sound of the worship experience. So Boomer, before we dive into hardware and software for pads, first let's just kind of get the big picture view of like what are pads and like what's happening like sonically to the ear, like what role do pads play?
Yeah, so pads are an ambient synthesizer mainly used in cinematic music and in worship music. They're a tool just to fill space and lay a foundation, create a foundation in worship music. They're very subtle. You wouldn't be able to hear them if they were there, but you would definitely notice if they were not there.
Yeah, I think we definitely take for granted, and we hear pads probably all the time, whether we're watching movies or TV shows or listening to just any music production, basically, like whether it's pop music or whatever the latest greatest music is. Especially in worship music, it's like pads add so much to that sound. It fills it in, and it would like really sound like really empty or like naked without them. So let's talk about what does your hardware setup look like when you're like playing with the Red Rocks worship band or you're just playing at church on Sundays. What hardware is going on to produce these pad sounds?
Yeah, so pretty simple. All you need is a MIDI controller of any type. Mine is pretty small and they arrange in various sizes, and then you need a laptop and software mainly to connect to the hardware.
Yeah, because the MIDI controller is really just like sending signals to the computer saying, hey, play this note. Like that's pretty much it. Yeah. Like that's MIDI language. That's kind of how that works. And then your computer will, whatever software you're using, will kind of interpret, okay, that note needs to sound like this. So speaking of, what type of software do you use?
Yeah, the main software that I use is a software called MainStage, and it's from Apple. It's an Apple product. Other people use software like Ableton Live, and actual patches that I use are software called Omnisphere. That's one of the main synthesizer. It's called a soft synth that I use to produce, hundreds, thousands of sounds.
Yeah, so you have these digital audio workstations like Logic Pro X or Ableton or I guess MainStage technically is considered one of those. But with those, like those larger pieces of software, you have these like smaller pieces of software that run in them. I'm not a computer scientist, so I don't know how it works. But generally speaking, you buy these plugins like Omnisphere, which can be expensive, like $500. But that's what produces like those really cool, unique sounds that you hear on a lot of the worship albums coming today. Like obviously, Boomer helped produce some of the sounds that you'll hear on the Red Rocks worship albums that have just come out, but then also albums like Hillsong Worship, Elevation. A lot of these guys or gals playing these keyboard rigs are using software like Omnisphere. And it's cool. You can actually even I think there's resources online where you can even buy patches to sound just like that patch that they use on a particular Hillsong song or Elevation song. So Boomer, what does the role of pads in worship usually look like? Like what are some of the benefits that using pads will create in your worship set?
Yeah, the best places to place pads are in transition between one song and another.
So explain, what would that look like? Like what you're saying, like for transition, so like the rest of the band is like they hit their last chord, right?
Yeah.
And then but you just keep sustaining the pad?
Absolutely, yeah. It creates, it lays the foundation for the next song to come in.
Nice. And then maybe whoever's playing pad can like transition the key if there's a key change too.
Yeah.
That's a little bit, that's less jarring. You can just, ideally, hopefully you have some related keys, or maybe you're playing songs back to back in the same key, but pads can make nice smooth transitions when you're trying to not completely drop out the music.
Yeah. And they're also helpful too in transition from the message to the worship set. You know, the pastor is up there and he's giving his message and he's about to close, and when a pad comes in there, it creates a seamless transition between the message and worship, so that when the worship team is up there, the pad's already there and we're ready for worship.
Yeah, and they also play an important role, especially in those parts of the service, to just add to the kind of the, I don't know how to necessarily phrase it, maybe the emotion of the moment, or it helps, especially at the end of a sermon when the pastor's kind of getting to the point where he's like calling the congregation to action, or doing like an invitation, to salvation. Like the pads can just really just bring that, I feel like, to a whole another emotional level. Again, not to manipulate people, but really to just, I think, to help hone in and like help people focus. I think there is something like going on in our brains when we hear these pad sounds that just help us focus in on what's being said. So pads, I think they're actually important tools on just the communicating the gospel in God's word, and like really hammering home the point at the end of the sermon. So yeah, and sometimes you could just have, I think you could probably just have pads droning, as long as they're in the right key, they could kind of be droning under the whole worship set, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Bethel does that all the time.
Yeah.
They put in a pad and they have the same key for all 3 or 4 songs in the worship set.
Yep.
And that drone pad holds for over 45 minutes.
Wow. So to make sure, like, that, say, if, someone wants to start using pads and they have a keyboardist and they have all the synth and all that stuff set up, how do you do that in a tasteful way, that's just not going to sound like mushy or cluttered? I think, with these pads sounds, they're such big sounds in a way that, like, if you're not careful with a keyboard, you can kind of mess that up. So what kind of general rules of thumb do you use, and you can show us here on your keyboard when you're playing? Yeah,
so the biggest rule for me is just keep it simple. You have, you're playing in one key, but you're switching from different chords, and so the best thing to do is, let's say we're playing in C, so we're gonna go on the C chord, take out the 3, and then you're only gonna be playing a 1 and 5, and then to make things tasteful, you can throw in the octave, you can throw in the 4, and you can throw in the 2. But like I said, keep it simple is probably the best. If you want to just do the 1 and 5, that'll do it for you.
Yeah, so he's not even moving around like full like block chords and changing chords. It's really just like keeping the foundation, that 1 and 5, and then noodling around maybe the 3, the octave, or the 2. That's all you need. So keep it super simple. So at this point, we want to give you a live demonstration of how pads can transform the sound of your worship music. So here we have a very mediocre worship leader who's going to play the first verse and chorus of the song Nobody Like You by Red Rocks Worship. And what we're going to do here, and just listen very carefully, we're going to fade in the pad sound in the background and listen to how it just absolutely transformed the quality of this worship leader.
Nobody like you, God. There's nobody like you, God. And there will never be. Oh, God. There's nobody like you, God. There's nobody like you, God. And there will never be.
Oh my word, that was mind-blowing how much that just transformed it just brought the level of quality way up to the next level. So and disclaimer, results may vary when you implement pads into your worship context. You won't always transform into a handsome worship leader with a buttery smooth voice, but it will really fill in the sound behind you, whether you're solo worship leader or you have a band playing along with you. So not only do we want to educate you about pads, like what they are, the hardware and software you need, and tips for implementing them in your worship service, we also want to give you a free tool to help you get started with using pads in your worship services today. If you're in a context where you don't have a keyboardist like Boomer to play all your pad sounds, one common solution is to actually use pre-recorded pad sounds that you can just play underneath the worship songs in your worship set. You just have to make sure that whatever pad sounds you're using in the background, they're just in the same key of whatever worship song you're playing, or else that would sound horrible.
Yeah, so I sat down and went to my go-to pad, one of my favorite pads that I use all the time in Omnisphere, a pretty expensive software, and I laid down a 10-minute track of ambient drone pad that you can use, and I made it in all 12 keys and gave them to Jake, and we want to give them to you for free.
And these pads are super easy to use. For hardware, I mean, there's a couple options, a couple simple ones where if you have a smartphone device, you can actually just download the pads into the music player on your smartphone, whether you're using iOS or Android. And there's even some good free apps out there for running audio files from your smartphone. And they include some cross-fading features. You can create playlists of different tracks, because say you have a worship set where you have different song keys, you want to make sure you have the different keys of pads loaded in there to play. Another easy solution is if you run ProPresenter at your church, you can actually put the audio files in ProPresenter and link the audio files to be queued up when a certain slide is selected in ProPresenter. So like when the title slide of a song like Nobody Like You plays, you'll have the appropriate pad audio file playing in the background. Just make sure your ProPresenter computer is connected to your sound system. There's other ways that you can play pads, like using software like Ableton, but I just want you to keep it simple. Download these files today, even just play them from your computer, grab your guitar, and start playing along with your favorite worship songs. Boomer, thank you so much for taking the time to create this free resource for the Churchfront community and subscribers. I think you guys are going to find these things invaluable to your worship ministry, and like I said, you can get started with those today, like right now in the next couple minutes. So dude, just really appreciate what you're doing to help educate others about using synths and pads and other elements of music production and worship. Guys, follow Boomer at Boomer Bate on Instagram or subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's got some really great stuff on his channels. Thanks so much, Boomer.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
To download your free worship pads that Boomer made for you, click the link in the description of this video, complete the form, and I'll email you instant access to the pads. Once again, I want to thank Boomer Bate for taking the time to make these free pads for us, and I also want to thank Corey Miller from Red Rocks Worship for making the brief cameo in this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the Churchfront channel so you can continue to receive all of our latest content. Share this video with your worship leader friends, and please hit that thumbs up button if you found this video helpful.